Is being a daughter-in-law really this powerless? Is it just because we're out in the sticks? Or is this family just special in some way? Ever since I married into this family, I've been confused. The only thing I'm sure of is this. Staying in this house any longer would be nothing but a waste of my life. My name is Bethany. I'm 28 years old. I work as a freelance writer. I met my husband, Caden, through a mutual friend, and we got married after a year of dating. I accepted his passionate pursuit and proposal. While we were dating, Caden was pretty tight-lipped about his family. The most he told me was that they lived in a rural area. Even when our families met, his parents came into the city to see us. The rural part didn't bother me. After all, I was born and raised in the city. I had always been somewhat enamored with the idea of living surrounded by majestic nature. Little did I know, I was naive about what country life really entails. Not realizing this before I made the decision to marry was a big mistake. And there was another mistake. It was not noticing the fact that Caden had kept hidden from me. He had always concealed from me that his family were farmers. After marrying Caden, I ended up living with his family as he had requested. My work as a writer can be done anywhere, as long as I have an internet connection. Ignorant as I was, I looked forward to living in a place rich in nature. But then,
Come on, Bethany. You've got to stick those beer labels on tighter. Put some muscle into it.
from the day I moved in, I was roped into farm work, forced into hard physical labor I was unaccustomed to. I remember being completely exhausted on the first day. Honestly, my writing work was the last thing on my mind. Of course, I confronted Caden.
Why didn't you tell me your family owns a farm?
Huh? Didn't I mention that when we started dating?
Caden played dumb. I was truly infuriated. He purposely didn't tell me about the farm because he knew I'd need to work there. If he had told me, there was a high chance I would have backed out. I was completely trapped. The in-laws wasted no time putting me to work on the farm, starting the very next day. My days became a grind, working from dawn till dusk. To make things worse, they kept pressuring me to have kids quickly.
We need you to have at least 3 kids. The more hands to work, the better.
Hearing this casual wish from my mother-in-law, Sienna, made my blood run cold. I was already worn out from half a day of farm work. The idea of having 3 children felt impossible. For some reason, maybe stress, I wasn't getting pregnant. It didn't take long for my initially kind in-laws to change their attitude. Soon I was told, if you're not gonna have kids, you shouldn't leave. Around October that year, Caden's sister Maya visited with her kids. I had a feeling the first time I met her. And this time it was confirmed. Maya and I just don't get along. She looked down on me for not having provided an heir and smirked.
Better hurry up and have kids, Bethany. You're already 28, aren't you?
I know how old I am, thank you very much. I almost snapped back but held myself. I realized I was falling into their pace.
But saying I can't do this and simply escaping back to the city isn't an option here.
If I'm going to make a real break for it, I need a better reason than this. Maya sensed my hesitation and took advantage. She introduced me to neighbors, making connections I hadn't asked for. Bad-mouthing me at home, but praising me in public. Now, I even had friends in the village. I was stuck. Going back to my own family was becoming more difficult.
See you, make sure you're pregnant by Christmas, Maya nonchalantly said before leaving.
As Christmas approached, my life got busier than ever. Gift shopping and party planning piled up on my to-do list. On top of that, I couldn't neglect my usual housework and farm chores. Honestly, I never thought being a farmer's wife would be this overwhelming. Being both physically and emotionally drained, I really needed some support. I brought this up to my husband Caden several times, but it was all in vain.
The first year is hard for all brides, haha. That's what my buddies say, haha.
No matter what I asked of Caden, this was the kind of dismissal I got. So I continued my lonely battle. Then Christmas finally arrived. Maya, my sister-in-law, came back home with her kids.
And that, just coming home is tiring.
Maya came back acting no different than her own kids. She didn't lift a finger to help, whether it was housework or farm chores. Honestly, I was already at my breaking point. If Maya was going to act like this, then I should be free to act how I want to. I mustered up the courage to start doing things my way.
I'm hungry. When's dinner? Coming right up.
I made dinner and served it to Maya and the family. The conversation at the table revolved around the hardships and market trends of the past year. At the right moment, I stood up.
Well, I'll be heading back to my parents' house now. Everyone have a Merry Christmas.
What? Bethany, what are you talking about? You're supposed to work here.
Caden shouted. Everyone looked at me in disbelief. I knew it wasn't going to be smooth sailing. I calmly retorted,
Maya's here visiting. Why can't I go back home? Please enlighten me.
Well, city life and country life are different. It's ridiculous for a wife to go back to her parents.
I have no intention of conforming to village norms, I retorted.
Every time they brought up some village common sense, I stood my ground. I didn't agree to become a slave when I married into this family. If marriage means giving up my freedom, I wouldn't have gotten married in the first place. Finally, I managed to go back to my parents' house despite my in-laws' resistance. I took with me the feast I had prepared. I paid for these ingredients myself and cooked this meal specifically for my family. I left the feast for my in-laws in the kitchen. I later heard that it was all gone within a day. Apparently, Caden's family had to get by on canned food and cereal for the next few days. Caden got an earful from his parents asking, "What are you teaching your wife?" Can't blame them. They probably never thought I'd leave. No matter the unreasonable demands, she's the obedient wife who never argues back. No doubt that's the kind of daughter-in-law the in-laws were hoping for. Too bad that's not me. Caden had seriously underestimated my resistance. A few days after the Christmas event, I went back to his family's house and heard the whole story from him. He seemed quite upset, but I shrugged it off.
Can you stop making it sound like it's my fault?
What did you say?
The mistake was dumping all the housework and farm chores on me, to begin with.
His parents' eyes narrowed as they scolded me.
You chose to marry into this family. What's this attitude?
Exactly. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Why can't you do that?
I get what they're trying to say, but I had my own side of the story too. If I had known about this lifestyle, I never would have married into this family. Hiding the fact that this is a farm was deceitful. Caden seemed like he had something to say, but I didn't let him.
I think this culture of dumping everything on the wife needs to change.
When I presented the document I had prepared, Caden's face turned pale. It was a divorce application. Of course, my section was already filled out. Caden looked like he was about to cry.
Are you serious?
Of course I am. Please sign it.
My in-laws were even more resistant to the divorce than Caden was. They said it would be a disgrace to lose their daughter-in-law, that they'd be too embarrassed to face their community. They begged me to reconsider, told me they'd meet my demands if only I'd stay. I had to set my in-laws straight.
Everyone in the village knows I've had a tough time since getting married. They're also aware that I'm divorcing and leaving the village. So there's no issue, I said.
I had been actively seeking advice from friends in the village whom I met through Maya. Most of them were very sympathetic to my plight, feeling that I had been deceived. Actually, the villagers are pretty critical of how you forced me into this life and exploited me. You might want to be careful moving forward, I added. Caden was hesitant to fill out the divorce papers, probably influenced by his parents. It wasn't until I said, "I'll write an article about what's happened here," that he finally did. I didn't mean to sound threatening, but I had no other option. Worried about public opinion, my in-laws finally backed down.
Thank you all for everything you've done for me. Please take care.
So I packed my bags and left my in-laws home. I later wrote a genuine article about becoming a farmer's wife. After all, I had never promised Caden or my former in-laws that I wouldn't write about it. Fortunately, the article garnered a lot of attention and even led to new work opportunities. To be honest, the only good thing that came out of my marriage and divorce was this new job. In retrospect, it was a blessing we didn't have children. My departure apparently tarnished Caden and his family's reputation in their village. Every family is struggling with a lack of successors, after all. Their strong-arm tactics didn't make them immune to criticism. They became known behind the scenes as the terrible family that almost ruined a city girl's life. Being a freelance writer, my role in this only amplified the issue. I solely focused on the actions of Caden and my former in-laws, so there were no complaints from the villagers. On the contrary, my ex-in-law's family became a stain on the village and were widely despised by the community. They were essentially ostracized. It seems no one was willing to help them with their farming anymore. With me gone, my ex-in-law's household could no longer manage both the housework and the farm work. So, Caden quit the corporate job he had and returned to farming, taking responsibility for the family's hardships. But Caden had been an office worker his whole life, so he was far from proficient in farm work. His parents, frustrated with their incompetent son, seemed to be even stricter on him than they had been with me. The atmosphere was extremely tense because Caden kept complaining to his parents. Even when the whole family gathered, the mood was so icy that nobody spoke. Apparently, more often than not, they had silent and gloomy dinners. Caden reached out to me several times, asking if we could get back together. Of course, I declined every time he contacted me. All Caden and my ex-in-laws wanted from me was labor. There was no way I could agree to such a transparent proposition. Eventually, Caden stopped reaching out to me altogether. The fortunes of my ex-in-law's household significantly declined after our divorce. It became a major issue when Maya returned home after being granted a divorce due to her affair. Her return as a debt-ridden burden only added to the woes of Caden and my ex-in-laws. Their already tarnished reputation worsened even more because of Maya. On the other hand, life has been going smoothly since my divorce from Caden. My writing work is steady and my social circle keeps expanding. I'm now so busy that I hardly have time to catch my breath. The story about my marriage to a farmer's eldest son gained a lot of traction. Many readers confess they too were tricked into becoming farm wives. It felt like peering into a dark underbelly of rural farming communities. I suspect that more women will go through experiences similar to mine. My articles on farming have led to new opportunities and expanded my network. Thanks to that, I've met some amazing men who I think could be a good fit for me. Life is unpredictable. You never know what's around the corner. You could even accidentally end up in a terrible marriage. But what's crucial is to never give up on finding happiness. If you work for it, doors will open. I intend to continue striving for my happiness.